problem is that addiction becomes a double burden in Indian families.
How does that play itself out in relation to the rest of the family?
The problem with addiction is it does not arrive
I don't really want my partner to know the details of what we're talking about.
context where there is a lot of hostility already, where there is already a lack of trust.
3 months down the line, and I'm just checking in with them how things are going. And I might hear the partner say something like, I preferred him when he was using. Yes. Hi, my name is Obi Unaka. I'm the Chief Clinical Officer here at Samapan. And this is one of those podcasts that I've been really looking forward to. With me today is one of our esteemed guests, somebody who is probably well known in India, but I've been following her for quite some time on Instagram. I'm not sure she's so aware of this, but that's true. I'd like to say a big hearty welcome to Dr. Meghna, also known as Therapist Mummy. Meghna, hi.
Hi, thank you so much for having me here.
The pleasure is all ours. Just for an introduction, if you can just introduce yourself to our audience so they know a
Sure.
bit more about you.
Yeah. So I'm a clinical psychologist and a trauma-informed psychotherapist. I'm an MPhil and PhD in clinical psychology. And well, this part is a little hard because then I'll delve into a big long story, which I don't want to. But I'm basically a child and adolescent psychotherapist, but I also see a lot of parents and couples in therapy. So pretty much in my private practice in Bangalore, I see individuals across the age range.
Quite impressive. I mean, our conversation today is going to span quite across the spectrum of what happens in families or in couples, especially with people with substance use disorders or addictions. You know, some of what I'd like us to look at really is what happens in the relationship, how do partners generally respond to this, what insights can be gained from our conversation, what can people do, or what are some of the warning signs that they need to look out for, and how can we help repair the relationship after a period of substance use and treatment.
Sure.
So I'd just like to start from, I mean, what's your understanding of what are the first signs that a partner might notice if there was somebody with problematic substance use in the family? What are some of the things that generally happen? And I'd really appreciate it if you can put it into the context of in Indian families, because we're in India.
Yeah. So the thing with these early warning signs is that the problem with addiction is it does not arrive very loudly. It arrives very silently, and there are more patterns, right? So there might be avoidance, there might be missed dinners, there might be mood swings, there might be secrecy, lying, hiding.
Yes.
So that is what is actually evident before, right? And it is, and a lot of people might miss it. A lot of people might sense that there is something wrong, but might not talk to each other about it. And so this is what happens in the early stages. And another thing that happens is that there is erosion of trust. So trust slowly starts to get eroded.
Yeah.
There are these micro betrayals, there is this lying and hiding and minimizing, and that creates a whole atmosphere of suspicion and hypervigilance in the family. Another thing that's very interesting about these patterns is that the couple starts to resemble, what we call the classic pursuer-withdrawer pattern.
Yes.
So the addicted partner becomes the withdrawer, and they sort of start to seek solace in the substance. And the other partner, the non-using partner, becomes the pursuer. They are the one who are constantly chasing and monitoring, perhaps, or, confronting. So this is the classic pattern that starts to shape up, which the couple themselves are unaware of.
So how do how does the wider family respond to this when it's happening? Because India being a collectivist society, generally most people live in joint families, or there's, the whole family system is involved in this. How does that play itself out in relation to the rest of the family? So this is happening with the couple, but what happens to the rest of the family? How did they perceive this process that's taking place?
The thing with the family system is that most of the time, this is like what we've seen overall, right?
Yes.
Most of the time there is a lot of, because there's so much of stigma around addictions and there's so much shame around addictions, that becomes louder. So in most of the time in families, there is a lot of secrecy and shame, there's a lot of silence. And sometimes it might go up to moralizing and that, oh, why can't you stop? Or it can just be about, enabling, which basically means that you're protecting the person who's using. So it can look like, for example, you'll pay off the debt, you'll manage the kids, you'll lie to the family members, you'll minimize the use. Minimizing basically means that the person is using and you're maybe aware, but you would probably say, oh, it's just stress, right? So you would probably use denial. You would probably use, what we call as over-adjusting,
Yes.
which basically means that you would say that I will take care of everything else. My partner is not here, this person is not here, I will take over. But you know what? Research shows that the more one partner over adjusts or over compensates or overdoes, the more the other partner underdoes, right? Underperforms. So that the whole family system is impacted, because most of the time we don't talk about it, but the family system is taking over the functions of the using partner, and it becomes very imbalanced.
Yeah. In the context of the Indian culture, how is an addiction perceived? Especially in a relationship, because I've been in India just coming on 3.5 years now, and what I notice with a lot of family members, I'm not saying it's the majority, but quite a lot of them, when they come in, even when the partner is talking about the problematic use of the substance, there's still an element of them minimizing it, trying not to make it seem as bad as it really is, when we know that it's not just about the substance use, there's other impacts, especially with regards to the children, their relationship, their engagement in whether it be work or college or whatever it might be. So how is it generally perceived in the wider community, as with regards to an addiction? How do people look at it? I know there is some elements of a stigma, but what are your thoughts on this?
There's a lot of stigma. There's not just some elements. The problem with Indian society is that we are so the problem is that addiction becomes a double burden in Indian families, because on one hand there is the pain of the addiction, and on the other hand there's the burden of keeping up appearances. So we don't want others to know what's really happening behind closed doors, and that takes up so much energy and so much of resources that and that's why in therapy we kind of tell the family, the couple, that you don't have to be black and white. You can be very, what we call a selective truth telling. You can talk about, you can decide who are the unsafe or the safe people, to share what and how much with, and you can keep the rest to yourself. So it doesn't have to be a very black and white pattern. You can decide how much to reveal. The problem is that we want to keep up appearances and we want to pretend that there is no problem when there is a huge problem. And so this kind of denial also really impacts the whole family, because you're just wanting to keep up these appearances at the cost of, rather than egging the person on to participate in their own recovery.
In light of that, what role do you think a partner could possibly play enabling their loved one to seek help?
I think the partner has a very important role. In fact, I think the way the partner responds can shape the entire course of the disease, right? So if the partner is in denial, if they are over-adjusting, if they are, if they choose silence, that obviously has worse outcomes. But if the partner says, hey, you know what, we are going to seek help, and if they frame this as with empathy and not with criticism, so instead of saying, hey, you need help, saying something like, we need help to get out of this stuck pattern, right? That is really helpful. So partners' role in egging their using partner to seek early intervention is a win-win, because it immediately then turns, the you to a we, right? It immediately turns coercion and control to connection. And we've seen that, couples who navigate this process together, when there is emotional safety, they have far better outcomes, because sobriety is not just about, okay, I'll be off substances. It's so much more, right? It's about emotional safety. It's about connection. It's about also ensuring that there is no secondary trauma layering. So what happens a lot of the times in these cases is that there's secondary trauma from, this problem being there in the couple or the family dynamic. So you might experience hypervigilance, there is
Yes.
numbing, there is a lot of suspicion, there's a lot of hostility. And so therefore, it becomes very difficult, right, for both the partners, right? One partner is hiding and the other partner is chasing. And so when sobriety it includes this kind of secure attachment, with early intervention. You're not just depending on sheer willpower for your recovery.
One of the things that tends to happen in a lot of families when there is an addiction is the focus of everybody is on trying to fix this individual, even at the cost of other family members' emotional and psychological well-being. What is it that the partner could possibly do if they notice that one of or their loved one is ingrained in addiction, substance use? They've tried all kinds of interventions and nothing seems to be working. What can that person do to protect themselves?
Firstly, understand that you would be mostly overestimating control and underestimating your influence. What does that mean? You think that, you know what, I can love them I can force them out of the addiction.
Yes.
But you can't force them out of addiction. You can encourage them into recovery. But the more control and coercion and monitoring and checking that you display, the worse it is for the addicted partner. The more they're going to withdraw, the more they're going to lie. So you're literally pushing them away, right? So it is to recognize that if you are, if you keep yourself grounded, right? If you invest in your own emotional healing.
Yes.
Through it could look like individual therapy, support groups, and of course Samarpan has beautiful support groups for this. And it could look like reaching out to your own family and friends. It could look like couple therapy. It could look like many avenues. And in fact, research has shown when the non-using partner is taking care of their own emotional health, filling their own cup, paradoxically, it actually enhances the recovery of the addicted partner.
Yes.
Right? So it's actually a win-win. But a lot of people don't understand that. They think that by forcing and coercing and, pushing them into something helps, but it's not.
One of the challenges that I've noticed over my time here is sometimes, there's ample evidence to suggest that you work with the whole family. If it's just a couple, you work with the couple to be able to initiate some kind of change. Sometimes when it's suggested to their partner that, look, I think it might be helpful that you also go into therapy for yourself, something gets lost in translation. What they hear you saying is, it's your fault. You need to go and do some work on yourself.
Yeah.
So this is something that I find myself constantly having to say, look, I really need you to hear what I'm saying here.
Yeah.
And package it that way.
Yeah.
How else do you think that could be framed to the partner so that they don't take it as if you're blaming them for the situation that the family finds themselves in?
I think I would start by asking them questions about why do you think this happened? And start with that whole psychoeducation, which is grounded in a lot of compassion, right? To say that, okay, there are these factors that are resulting or leading to the addiction.
Yes.
Right? And so that will help them drop much of the blame and the shame and, oh, this is because of me. So I think we have to build a base before we even make that suggestion and kind of make them understand again the pattern. What is the consequence of this chasing and withdrawing pattern? And, well, you've tried things your way. It's not really worked, has it? And so therefore, what else can we do?
Yeah.
Right? So I think the way we frame it, the way we lay the foundation of it is very important. Another thing that I would like to mention is that a lot of couples, a lot of families think that recovery it's the finish line, right? But we have to understand that actually that's a foundation.
Yes.
And that's where the real work begins, right? Because that's where you would start to invest in relationship repair. That's when you will start to unlearn what broke us and learn how we can build this back together, this time with eyes wide open. So I think that framing is also very important.
One of the important strategies in the early part of when somebody is using their substances that the partner could possibly do is setting boundaries.
Yes.
So How can a partner go about setting a boundary in a way that's not going to feel as if they're punishing the person or they're rejecting them?
Yeah, the boundaries are unfortunately a very alien concept for Indians. Every time in therapy, I say the word out boundaries, and people are gasping and clutching their pearls. So, the idea of boundaries is that boundaries are actually love in action. Boundaries are love with structure. A lot of the times, people think that if I draw boundaries, I'll come across as cold and unsupportive. But that's not true. So, boundaries means saying something like, hey, I love you, but I will not have this conversation while you're intoxicated. Hey, you know what? I'm here to talk about treatment options and not excuses. So boundaries is displaying agency, and actually, when you say it like that, it actually communicates respect for both the partners. And then much of the reactivity and the chaos and the guilt drops. And boundaries are actually also what helps the partner step out of this chaser and pursuer dynamic.
Yeah.
So boundaries are actually very helpful, and I would coach both the partners and perhaps even the entire family system in how to draw these boundaries and why boundaries are not the villain that we make them out to be.
I'll tell you this. I was just, as you were saying, I was just thinking about some of my personal experiences to date, that in as much as we're talking of the boundary between the partners themselves, the couple, there's also the boundary of the couple or the partner allowing the therapist to do the work they're doing without them interfering.
Yeah.
One of the things that tends to happen is there's an expectation that after every session I get some feedback of what you're doing.
Yeah.
What drives that? What drives that response to the problem? So somebody comes to see a therapist, the partner might probably refuse to give consent. I don't really want my partner to know the details of what we're talking about. I want to maintain my boundary.
I would actually start from the beginning and start exploring why. I'm not saying that this is right or wrong. I'm just wanting to know why. And then I would go into what is the pattern there? Because what is the fear there? What is the client thinking will happen if the partner is let in on the process? What are their fears? I would actually start from there without actually prescribing that whether the partner be left out or whether the partner be let in. Because every couple dynamic could be different.
Yes.
And you don't know what has transpired between them. And so therefore, I'd be very curious about the reasons why the person is actually even requesting such a thing. The whole point of looking at addiction or any other disease, any mental health issue from a systemic lens, is to see what are the enablers, right? What is actually making the problem worse, and what can be quickly incorporated to make it better. So I would make an assessment of that before I promise something like this, because you never know. Partner's involvement could be both a hindrance or it could be helpful. So while I would respect what the person is saying, of course, what the client wants, but I would not be just satisfied with saying, okay, yes, your wish is my command. And just because I think that's a beautiful opportunity for a therapist to really understand what's happening in the system. And that will be a missed opportunity if we just kind of, again, it's a very surface level request, right? And I would want to go deep into what's really happening beneath the surface.
Well, one of the ways in which we try to gather as much information as possible for every client that comes in, so we first of all send out a screening form, then we do the assessment, and then we do the psychiatric evaluation, we do a psychological evaluation. But most importantly, we send out a questionnaire, a family questionnaire, to all significant members of the family. There's something that tends to happen when you send that questionnaire out, because it's quite detailed. It asks some very explicit questions. A lot of the times, before the partner sends it back, they would probably ask something like, is he going to get to see this information I'm giving you? Why do you think that happens?
That happens very often in couple work as well, because you never know, the partners don't know, nobody knows unless we tell them explicitly how this information is going to be used. So unless you're already doing this, this is a protocol I suggest, and this is what I
No,
follow.
but we do. With regards to what you're saying there,
Yeah.
that we do say there that it's an aid to us being able to help your partners gather as much collateral information as possible. You know? We're
And
not
how
necessarily-
would you use that information? Is that also discussed with them?
Yes. The idea of this is to paint the bigger picture. Let's try and see all the moving parts as to see what impact is it having on the relationship, the family, and the bits that the client might not necessarily divulge to us.
Yeah.
You know, because
Yeah.
sometimes the client tells us one story, and I'm reading this questionnaire, and the partner's telling me something quite different.
Yeah.
You know, so the idea is really just to be able to highlight the discrepancy.
Yeah.
Not necessarily to blame,
Yeah.
but just to see, okay, if your partner was here, what might they be saying about this situation? How might they perceive it? What information might they tell us? And then somebody looks at this and they say, is he going to know I've told you this?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so there are two things to this, right? The first part is how these questionnaires are presented, right? I think the work that we do around, educating them
Yes.
and assuring them, and also saying that, oh, is that person going to be privy to my information? No, but we are going to use this to help the system, everyone involved, right? And the second part is, how are we going to use that? Because we are talking about a context where there is a lot of hostility already, where there's already a lack of trust, right? That has started to come in.
Yes,
We're,
yes.
we're talking about a system where there's already, oh my God, both the partners have their own wounds, they're both suffering. But, we need to kind of frame this as, hey, you are a team. And we are here to help the team. So I've seen that especially in couple work, what helps is if the therapist constantly frames it as it's not you and it's not you, it's the
system.
relationship.
Yeah.
I say that my client is the relationship. So when you kind of are able to show that, you know what, the clinician, the therapist is very invested in making your relationship work, that's when I've seen that much of the defensiveness and this mistrust drops. And the partners are able to trust the process, right? Trusting the process is also something that I explain to them. What does that mean? What does
Yeah.
it entail to trust the process? Because this is the first time that a lot of people are in therapy. They have no idea what to expect. They've probably seen some shows or in Bollywood movies which mostly portray therapy as very, very problematic. So I think the more we are transparent about what are we really attempting here, the less defensiveness and the less mistrust there is that we can work with.
How do we get family members or partners specifically to understand that there is no quick fix? Because sometimes I get a referral and there's an obvious question they ask, something like, so when he comes out, is he cured now? You know? And with all the best will in the world, no matter how much you try to frame it to them that, look, this is how I respond. There are never any guarantees. However, if your partner does what is being suggested, it's highly unlikely they might find themselves back where they started from. Because treatment is time limited. Somebody comes in for a period of time, I don't know, 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever it might be. The work doesn't just stop there.
Yes.
There's further work to be done.
Yes.
And I'm sure it wouldn't surprise you that when I've seen couples post-treatment, say, I don't know, 3 months down the line, and I'm just checking in with them how things are going, and I might hear the partner say something like, I preferred him when he was using. And I can give you the context as to why.
Oh my God.
Yes. I know.
Oh my God.
Yes. And let me explain. Client comes into treatment. He's in there for a period of time. Whilst he's away, the wife is looking after the kids, looking
Yeah.
after the finances, she's doing everything. All of a sudden, he comes out. Now, maybe, I don't know, the shoes that she bought for the kids or where she's putting the finances, he starts questioning it. Now, she or he, whoever the partner is, that's not the one with the problem or the substance use or the problem, is looking and thinking, hold on, I've kept this together all this time.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you've come and you
Yeah.
want to start taking the reins of what's going on. Secondly, there is a suggestion that some people take on board that they might choose to go to 12-step meetings, you know, AA or NA, whatever it might be. And sometimes people get caught up in going to those meetings, like, I'm going to do 5 meetings a week.
Yeah.
Once again, when you were using, at least when you were drunk or whatever it was, I knew you were in the bedroom. This time, you're off and away.
I don't know
You're
where
still
you are.
exactly. So how do we get people to understand that treatment doesn't just stop there? However, there still needs to be work done between both of them as what's acceptable with regards to your recovery, because your recovery is not going to supersede
Yeah.
our relationship.
Yeah.
There needs to be some kind of tandem that we're working in.
Yeah. That is why I think it's going to be super helpful if we somehow integrate the concept of relationship repair in the recovery.
Okay.
Right? What does relationship repair, which is a very important part of recovery, even mean? It's not just sobriety. It's turning coercion into connection. How do we do that? Right till now, the pattern has been chase and withdraw. It's been very, taking over everything and enabling and or controlling.
Yes.
But now we have to not just break this pattern. We have to shift to a new pattern. What does that look like? Okay, if he asks questions about the child's shoes or where you put that money, what can you do that makes it easy for both of you to understand where is he coming from and where are you located? And what can we do with these positions? How can we make them feel like you're both part of this? Right? So this component is such an important component, but it has to be talked about actually ideally during the treatment. Right? Because otherwise it's like a very piecemeal approach. Oh, sobriety is the goal. I'm going to work towards that, but that's not the only goal. The goal is also integration. The goal is also relationship repair. The goal is also collaboration.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that needs to start from the step one in a way, because otherwise we're probably causing more disruption then.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
One of the most obvious things that stood out for me since I've been here is also the element of stigma that surrounds not just addiction but also mental health disorders. And one of the barriers to some people wanting to come into treatment is, what are people going to say? What are people going to think if they know he's gone in treatment? What do we tell other family members that ask? I mean, this is something that certainly, I'm from the UK, certainly in the UK, people are not so secretive, because if you look at it, very rarely the wider community not see what's happening. Everybody can see that this person's, got a substance use problem or whatever problem they might have. But one of the things that stands out for me here in India is there's still a barrier to people seeking help when we know there's help available if you just ask for it.
Yeah.
What are some of the things people can do to overcome that barrier, to them seeking help or getting help? Because even, for example, this is an outpatient department. Sometimes people don't even want to be seen coming in the building because of what people are going to say.
Yeah.
So what can be done to facilitate a change in that way of looking at this?
I would suggest something more radical. I don't know if it's realistic, but apart from this whole work that we were talking about, right, the selective truth telling and understanding which are the safe people, which are the unsafe people, I think I would do a lot of, if I recognize that the person has a lot of internalized stigma and shame that they carry, I would probably again start to work with them on that as well, right? So I would be like, I would do a lot of coaching or maybe even role plays about how you can respond when someone asks you, where were you? When you know that they kind of know, right? And how do you respond? So maybe through role plays, maybe through coaching in boundary setting, maybe through just practicing looking in the eye and talking something, I think might be a very useful part of how we kind of coach them and train them to face the world in a way. Because how else will your internalized stigma be taken care of? How else will you ensure that the shame is kind of, shame is actually one of the biggest reasons why, as you said, right, that prevents people from even seeking help.
Yes.
So shame has to be one of the components that we target, early on in treatment. The internalized shame of the person and of the family. So I think I would bring it out in the open in the session and I would just talk about it much more than, so much more than when I said radical, I meant there are actually times when I recognize this, not even in non-addiction context, like you said, even with mental health issues, that there is so much of stigma. In my sessions, I actually do these role plays with my clients, wherein I say I am acting as the onlooker or the person in the extended family, and we do a quick role play, and kind of also showing how does a confident response look like? What does it mean to kind of put yourself out there at a pace that you're comfortable with, but also own up then and look them in the eye and say whatever it is that you want to say. And it's can be quite liberating. Sometimes it does not work, but when it does work, it does work, right? So I think we should not shy away from we should not hide shame. We should really uncover it and bring it out in the open.
One of the things you mentioned when we were talking before we started is your training with child psychology as well, working with children. As we very well know, when there's an addiction or even a mental health issue in the family, it impacts the children as well.
Yeah.
What resources are available, to be able to support the children as well? Because in a previous organisation I worked in, one of the largest addiction charities in the UK, they had a program called Impact, moving parents and children together.
Oh wow!
It's very well researched. I mean, it's licensed all over the world. What is something similar they've got in India? Because every so often there are situations where, from where I'm sat, I can see that there is an issue here. Unfortunately, unless you tell me different, India doesn't have something like the social services that we have in the UK. Social services in the UK would make the referral for us. We just do a consultation and then they will say, look, this might be a child at risk, or we think this child needs to be seen someone. What's the equivalent here in India?
I'm not aware of any, honestly. I'm not aware of any equivalent. If a family like this comes to me, I will probably empower the parents, both the parents actually, and say that what your child needs is emotional safety. And children thrive on predictability, children thrive on... So for them, predictability is safety. So keep their routines consistent, make sure that there is a lot of bedtime stories, regular meal times, their routine is untouched. And I would individually empower the parents to, kind of take care of their kids in this manner. Talk to the kids, like, instead of saying grand things, things like, Papa is going through something hard and we're all learning to take care of him in different ways, and we're also taking care of ourselves, or something like that. But I'm not aware of any organizations or programs that would help parents in this context.
Okay.
I've trained in Triple P in Australia, which is the positive parenting program. It is the largest evidence-based program parenting program in the world.
Yes.
So they have many variations, wherein they have a baby Triple P, they have a child in transition Triple P. So they have many variations of their core parenting program. And one of the variations talks about how if one of the parents has a mental health issue, how do we kind of learn to take care of the kids or the family system in that context. But as far as I know, even that's not specific to addictions. But Triple P is not yet, it's not come to India. We're trying to bring it to India. To make it more culturally adaptable. But I'm not aware of any other programs that on a mass scale that exist in India that the parents unfortunately can be referred to. I'm not aware.
Talking of cultural adaptability, I've been seeing that you trained in Australia as well.
Yes.
I won't call them difficulties, I'd rather call them challenges that you see with the approach that is used in Australia. And what adaptations do you have to do in implementing your work over here?
The whole point of lifting a program that was, that was fashioned abroad and bringing it to India is that who is delivering the program. So consistently, time and again, we've seen that when there are Western, foreign-looking people delivering the program, Indians are inherently untrusting. They are like, oh, what will this person teach me about my own upbringing? They are very so it's so that's what we've understood. Even though the program that I'm talking about, Triple P, it is the largest evidence-based program in the world, which means it exists in 180 countries. It enjoys an evidence base across all those countries, from the lowest middle income
Yeah.
countries to, the richest, some of the richest spaces, right? But for India, what we've seen, we've gone to schools, we've met with thousands of university profs, principals of schools. We've tried to say that, hey, this program really works. But for them, ultimately, the program might work. But who's delivering it? And the examples that you use while delivering it, I think that is what makes the program very, very culturally adaptable. And so that's what we're trying to do now. We're literally trying to make a Triple P India so that, there is an Indian delivering the program.
Yes.
And it uses some cultural nuances through examples. The principles remain the same, though. But we're just using examples in a more Indian context.
Client's been in treatment, sorted himself out, he's come back out. What work do you think still needs to be done between the couple for them to redefine what their relationship looks like?
A lot of work needs to be done there. As I said, that how can you turn what has been confrontation till now into collaboration? How you will repair your relationship? How will you bring in emotional safety? How will you make sure that the couple is able to make joint decisions? Like, even after the person comes out, how will we manage triggers? How will we navigate everyday routines? How will, if I'm still tempted, how will I come and talk to you about it despite the fact that there is fear?
Yes.
Right? How can I create the space where I can be honest with you and you with me? And that's very difficult,
Yes.
but it's doable. It's very doable as well. Right? How do we check in? How do we, as a couple, not just talk about logistics, but how do we do an emotional check-in regularly? Right? How do we turn the you into we? How do we come onto the same page when it comes to so many things? Right? So I think that is very important work that continues, that's ongoing.
Yeah.
Actually throughout your life, but yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting, because one of the things that we tend to do, especially in residential treatment, is certainly before the client leaves treatment, by the time the client gets to the stage where they're preparing to leave, probably about a month or 2 weeks before they leave, they're already aware of what some of their warning signs are, some of the red flags
that's
when
very
they're in
nice.
their process.
Yeah.
Right. And we encourage the clients to tell their partner
Yes.
what that looks like.
That's
because
amazing.
that's the person closest to them.
That's
Oh, yeah, it is if it works perfectly.
Wait, hold
right?
on.
Yeah, it is if it worked perfectly. Now, what we also do is suggest that, okay, it'd be really helpful if you tell your partner what you would like them to do if they noticed these warning signs. Now, so you presented to the client and said, no, it'd be helpful. So you've identified what the warning signs are. You've told your partner what they are. How would you like them to intervene? As opposed to them saying what they would like them to do, they start telling what they want them not to do, right?
Yeah.
So I don't want you to follow me around.
Yeah.
I don't want you to think I'm like, kind of, hold on a minute. What would you like them to do? Because people would generally do what they want to do until they find out what they're meant to do.
Yeah.
How do you go about helping the partner? Because no matter how much we try to educate the partner and say, look, it'd be really useful if you go about it the way he's saying, because at least you've got a frame of reference that this is what you said you want.
Yeah.
But what happens is when I'm saying to my partner, do you know what? I'm finding something challenging, I'm finding something difficult. I hope you're not going to go and use now. Yes. Which then still maintains the distrust in the relationship.
Yeah.
What strategies do you think we can use to try and get the other partner to be on the same page? Because with all of the didactic information, with the education, there still seems to be this aspect of, I still can't trust him.
Yeah.
I still remember everything that went on previously.
Yeah. I think the first recognizing also, I'm talking about the using partner, right? That to also tell them that the trust is really built in small everyday actions. Trust is not one big apology or one grand gesture, but the more you follow through on what you've said you'll do, the more you'll show up.
Yes.
Right? The more there is emotional safety in the relationship. So the idea is to build trust and emotional safety. That's one. And two, with the partners, I think, because I don't think people understand the difference between monitoring or enabling and what could be a healthy stepping back and saying that, hey, this is what I will do and this is what I will not do. So I think it again comes back to knowing the difference between coercion, control, and, influence, right? As I said, that partners often overestimate control and they underestimate their own influence. So I think just really using a lot of examples, perhaps even role playing real life situations. If your partner says this, and if you want to say this, what is this an example of? Is this an example of control, or is it an example of influence?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think just educating them about the difference between the two and helping them really practice this, because these are patterns. They're entrenched patterns. It will take time. Right.
Yes.
So the work I think has to be done both ways. It's hard and you will mess up, and that's okay. But the idea is that this is a journey. It's okay.
Yeah.
And
so,
we're slowly getting there. We're slowly building trust, and we're slowly building safety.
so if you were going to give couples one key message to take away, after all of this, what would that be?
Don't underestimate how important and central your relationship is through all of this, right? So I think instead of being embroiled in this pattern, which you probably are aware of, not aware of, the one message I would give to couples is you investing in your couple relationship, continuing to work on your relationship is the biggest. It has ROI, which is unimaginably beautiful. So continue to invest in your relationship, because you've no idea what a bedrock of resilience it can become for you, is I think what I would say. And that ripple effect will impact so much. It'll impact your kids, it'll impact your work, it'll impact your routines, it'll impact everything. So if you continue to build if you continue to work on your connection, you will make sure that your recovery, which is an ongoing process, it comes out of your secure attachment and is not just based on sheer willpower. So it's a win-win. So that's what I would say.
In your extensive years of working with couples, what is one key insight you would say that's probably changed over the way you viewed relationships from when you first started to where you are now?
What's changed?
I know.
Yeah, it's I would love to write a book on it, actually.
Because I'm sure over the years there's been some beliefs that you've probably held about something, and then further down the line, having worked with people, you kind of change your approach or the way you see your insights.
I think the biggest one is definitely that. And okay, can I give one therapeutic insight and one non-therapeutic insight?
Please, yes.
So I think one therapeutic insight would be, what has really helped me work with couples is really being the biggest cheerleader, not for individual partners, but for their relationship. So my client is the relationship, and I would be their biggest cheerleader for the relationship. And I think when the therapist shows that kind of involvement, attitude, just that mindset that, this is sacred.
Yes.
This is what we're pouring everything into, and this is beautiful. I think that kind of ripples down to the partners as well. So I think that is what has changed, that maturity in understanding that what is this, like just taking the bird's eye view and understanding what is this all about. It's about your relationship at the core. Everything else is secondary. And I think Indians don't really understand that, because they're like, oh, but what about my mama and papa, and what about my kids? And it's okay, they're not going anywhere, but your relationship is primary. So that's one therapeutic, I think, insight change. And I think the non-therapeutic would just be, at the end of the day, people don't want to work hard, honestly. We're all lazy.
I did say that this morning, that people don't like to work hard.
And it's really pissing off to work with people who don't want to work. I think there's a way to turn that around, if I may, and kind of say that, hey, you know what? And I always use the analogy of health, because people are really health conscious and they really understand what it means to pour into their body and, pour into themselves. So I just say that the more you pour into this, the more this will grow. And people don't want to do that. But I've seen that when they do kind of come for therapy, they're already halfway there. They understand that, this, we really need to make an effort. It's not going to happen with us sitting on our asses. So there's not trigger warnings. They're just beep words.
Yeah.
PG. PG.
Parental guidance.
Yeah, parental guidance.
Yeah, I'm an eternal optimist, you know, and I always say
Yeah.
to people that if I stop believing in the possibility of change, I'll stop doing what I do for a job.
Likewise.
One message of hope for people out there, you know, who might be navigating some of the challenges of the modern world, all what we got going on with us today. Let's leave on a positive note. One message of hope.
Keep it simple, silly. Like, don't complicate it. Like, life is so beautiful, and I think we can do so much with. And I think the relationships are the most important thing in the world. Nothing else matters. So just keep it simple.
Meghna, thank you so much
Oh
for
my
your
God.
time. We're so
I can't
grateful to
imagine
have
that
you.
I didn't even use this.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Much appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you. This was so much fun. And I could do
Likewise.
this all day, by the way.
So could I. Thank you.